Hello, I am Aida Merino. I'm going to be talking about the Cold War, the economic interests that the main world powers had, and the economic systems they endorsed. What was the Cold War? The Cold War lasted from 1945 to 1991, and it was an economic, ideological, geopolitical rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, where each nation and their respective allies feared the spread of the other's economic system. The US had adopted capitalism, while the USSR was communist. What is capitalism? It is the economic system in which private individuals and businesses own and control their own production and the profits they gain from it. The word capitalism was first used as a reference to the system of exclusive ownership in the 19th century by the French socialist Louis Blanc. However, it was Adam Smith's free market ideas that introduced capitalism. Socialism is the economic system in which the ownership of property, natural resources, and the production of goods and services belong to the state. The principles to both the Socialist and Communist parties are stated in the Communist Manifesto, written by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels in 1848. So what happened? When World War II ended, the alliance between the USA and the USSR was very fragile. The latter had begun to install socialism in the territories that its army had liberated. The Americans wanted the European countries to remain free of Soviet control and stop communism from becoming a worldwide phenomenon. The USA and allies controlled Western Germany while the Soviets did the Eastern Germany. Throughout the following years, the Soviet Union continued to control Eastern European countries and harshly repressed those who tried anything out of line. This was when the Berlin Wall was constructed, as around 15% of the eastern population migrated to the West. China was also eventually won by communism, and many proxy wars were fought, such as the Korean and Vietnam Wars. China and the USSR walked different ways after the first decided to follow Stalinism communism, and the later adopted a post-Stalinism communism. Communism came even closer to the USA once the USSR and Cuba became allies. The world seemed on the brink of nuclear war, with American missiles in Turkey and Soviet ones in Cuba. Khrushchev agreed to remove the missiles from Cuba as long as the Americans dismantled theirs from Turkey. In 1969, there was a de-escalation after leaders reunited and agreed to restrain their nuclear weapons. However, when Reagan became president of the US in the 80s, he tried to outspend the Soviet military and took a more defensive approach. Though they never did, the Soviets did increase their expenditure and the economy declined, causing discontent on the citizens. When Brezhnev died, Gorbachev became the head of the USSR. His reforms allowed Poland, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, and Czechoslovakia to become completely independent and for the Berlin Wall to fall. The Cold War finally ended when Yeltsin became the president of the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic, who banned the Communist Party in 1991 and recognized the events of independence previously mentioned. The same year, the USSR officially collapsed and ended the war. I interviewed my father, who is 63 years old, and his name is Victor David Merino Torres. My father told me he could give me the perspective of the countries allied to the USA, since there is obviously another perspective from the Russian or communist side. He explained it as the following. Basically, Americans based their support on liberty, freedom of speech, and capitalism. At that time, there was no internet and all the media were controlled. The good guys were the capitalists for the USA, and they were against the Russian communists, who were the bad guys. It was the time of the space conquest. The big European countries, West Germany, England, France, Italy, etc., supported the US, and the countries on the bloc that called behind the Iron Curtain supported the Russians. At that time, Russia and China were allies. The atmosphere was very tense because people always discussed the possibility of a third world war, and the nuclear race between Russia and the USA was strong. The United States carried out its nuclear tests on the atoll of Mururoa. The atmosphere sometimes got very tense, especially whenever spies were discovered, whether Russian or American. In the case of Russia and China, which were originally allies, the growth of China caused the Russians, who, when they were separated, no longer had the same power and distanced themselves. In the bloc behind the Iron Curtain, the Germanies were united, while Czechoslovakia broke away. Cuba has always been an ally of Russia in this part of the world and also did a lot of espionage work in the USA. In my conclusion, I believe that both capitalism and communism can sound very good when they are just in paper and just in theory. However, I believe that it is almost impossible for an economic system to exist that isn't tarnished by human greed, which is always what ends up leading the wars, the revolutions, and just overall the suffering of the people. Thank you.